Welcome back to Mostly Growth, the #1 podcast in product monetization. And joining us today, we have DemandJen herself, Jen Allen-Knuth. Welcome.
Thank you. I was just saying before we got on, I love your show. I'm excited to have some fun. So thanks for having me.
So I think you have the absolute best tagline I've heard of like any business. I help B2B revenue teams stop losing pipeline to buyer status quo. It's just like such a perfect, pithy sentence. And it's so necessary. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. We met in Amsterdam, of all places. And you had to watch a really embarrassing walk-up moment. So can you tell this to listeners from your perspective?
Not think anything you did was embarrassing. What do you think you did was embarrassing? Like nothing honestly is coming to mind. What was so embarrassing?
So we had to choose our own walk-up music for this conference. And then there's about 20 seconds of walking up to music that you chose. Everyone's judging you. And then I felt like you had great walk-up music. Do you have like a go-to walk-up song?
Of course. Like a lot of what I do now is I'll speak at sales kickoffs. And if you let them pick, it's always like AC/DC or Pitbull.
Or that Coldplay song.
Coldplay is a popular one. I've learned like you got to set the tone. And so I almost always now pick James Brown because like who's better to set the vibe than James Brown?
Which song by James Brown?
It depends. So I try to tailor it if it's for like depending on what the talk is about. So like The Boss is if I'm talking to leaders, I'll do that one. The one I did for Sassius was the one it's like where he's like, I'm back, because it was my second time speaking. So he's got a lot of good beats and it's just fun. And there's usually a lot of old people in my audiences, so they like that.
What would you go to, CJ, if you had to choose your own music?
What would you do?
I did a sales kickoff in Bucharest, Romania in the dead of winter, like 6 years ago. I felt like we didn't have a window the entire time or go outside. And B2B SaaS, for some reason, just loves Coldplay. They just kept playing it over and over and over again. And by the end, like we had like Stockholm syndrome. Like we felt like we were captives and someone was just like playing Coldplay over and over again. So I definitely wouldn't choose Coldplay. But if I was Jen, I would have done Whitesnake, but changed it to Here I Go a Jen on My Own. Here I go Jen on my own.
Noted, and we'll be using in the future. Thank you. Who doesn't love a little Whitesnake?
Full DemandJen puns.
Kyle, what was your walk-up song? I don't even remember it.
It was Hello by Dragonette and Martin Solveig.
That's right. Actually, give yourself some credit because remember, I think I DM'd you because they gave us a spreadsheet and they're like, put your walk-up song.
Yeah, they showed everyone's song in a spreadsheet so you can start prejudging people.
I would have preconceived notions of every single person before they spoke.
I was like, this is a badass song. Thank you for picking a good one. Now I know I could do something fun. It was a great song.
Glad to hear. I really struggled over that so much. I was listening to like every song on my playlist and I'm like, nope, there's cuss words in that one. Nope, there's political undertones in that one. Like, I just was knocking all of them off the list.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyar and CFO CJ Gustafson break down how modern companies make money, covering pricing, monetization, and benchmarks in ways that make you better at your job. Tactics and playbooks for finance, product, and sales operators looking to be the CEO of their role. This is Mostly Growth.
Changing gears a little bit, Jen. So you used to sell sales training. I do have to ask you about this. Can you tell me what that was like? It's so meta.
It was a really good experience for two reasons. One, it's an intangible. Like I can't show you curriculum and be like, do you want to buy this? Because that's boring. And two, because sales leaders are evaluating how you sell, thinking you are a reflection of what you're going to teach my salespeople to do. It made it stressful, but in a good way, where you know you've got to be on your game every call. I'm not a subscriber to like, it's easier to sell to this group or that group. Or I think there's hard things about all of them. But if you could get a sales leader to understand that you were using what you would be teaching their sales rep in the moment, that was just like a magical moment that made the rest of the sales process move faster. Like if you got, I see what you're doing right now. I was selling Challenger. They're like, you're trying to reframe how I'm thinking about the root cause of the problem, aren't you? I'm like, yes. And he's like, and this is what my reps aren't doing, right? I'm like, yes. Like that made it move faster, which I always thought was interesting.
It's like a demo.
But the pressure is on for you to like nail it. So the best sales experience I ever had was the team at Sandler. The Sandler team was so good at selling us on Sandler. I wanted our sales rep to be the one who did the training. So like, can you just like show them what you did here? And this was to train our investment team essentially how to pitch themselves and basically learn sales tactics because they were investors. They weren't used to doing sales for their job.
See, I love that because that creates such a competitive wedge, right? Because when you're selling sales training, everybody's selling the same thing. We have classroom learning, we have an e-learning module, we have a leadership. Like you don't get differentiation at the product level. You get differentiation at the sales experience level. Having spent my whole career in professional services and then in selling sales training, you realize coming into tech, man, there's such an underappreciation for how much the sales experience matters because you do have something sexy to show and sell. Like there was no demo that I was ever doing. I would my demo like a e-learning catalog. That's boring. And so it forced you to have a really good sales conversation versus I think in tech, sometimes if your product is so sexy, you can get away with a subpar one. I constantly hear people raving about Gong sales experience. Like Gong clearly is a great product, but they talk about the sales experience separate from the product. So, like that to me is a great example of someone who's like doing both things right.
CJ and I have talked about this on the pod before, but I had a belief back at my OpenView days that investors need to learn how to do sales. But I think realistically, like every executive needs to kind of do sales as part of their job. I mean, CJ, even you as the CFO, you had to sell candidates, right?
That was a big moment for me because you're selling investors, you're selling people on why they want to work on not only your team, but for your company. And honestly, you're selling yourself. I mean, I had to sell myself to the OpenView people in order to get my first CFO gig. And I saw this tweet one time and it said, like, there's a huge unlock in your career when you notice that the managing director at an investment bank, his number one job is sales. The partner at PwC, his or her number one job is sales. The owner of a car mechanic shop, her number one job is sales. The higher you go, the more money you make. It's limited by if you're able to sell.
Even in your personal life, right? Like I was single, married a guy with 4 kids. The hardest sales I make are parenting. Like it's just everywhere in your life once you're aware of it is behavior change is everywhere. So even as a leader, if you stop treating a process one way and start introducing another way, you got to sell the team to buy into the change. Otherwise, you fight that resistance all year long. That's a sale. And I think when I started hearing about sales that way, it made it feel way less of what I thought sales was, which in the movies, it's always like some 40-year-old dude in a slick suit that like walks in, says the magic thing, and everybody throws money at him. Like that's not at all what it is. It's the people who are really savvy at understanding their audience, knowing what the change barrier is and being able to speak to it and get someone's confidence high. Like that's a very different job than what was portrayed in the movies, which was largely why I didn't ever want to go into sales in the first place because I thought it was just icky.
And you know what you'll be saying? Bunch of losers sitting around in a bar. Oh yeah, I used to be a salesman. It's a tough racket.
What are some of your biggest, I guess, piece of advice for maybe it's a CFO that needs to learn sales but has never really done a sales training before, that has no sales background, like, or just any exec? What are some of the go-to either like sales principles or things that you find yourself teaching people?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it comes down to just basic human psychology. I think when I first got into sales, because it wasn't natural for me, I wanted to study like, how do you say this? And what's the hack for that? And what's the playbook for that? And what I neglected was just the psychology of change in humans. And so there's some very basic principles. Like if you look at prospect theory, right? That fact that we as human beings typically act to avoid a risk before we act to realize a benefit.
Loss aversion.
Right? Like if you look at like any sales pitch deck, it's usually built on benefit realization. Like if you change, you might see this beautiful story on the other side, or you might not, right? It's like we're not guaranteeing it. And so theories like that, like cost of inaction, understanding that there is more to be gained by talking about what is currently happening than what might happen if you change. Those were the things that actually I felt like taught me more about sales than any book I read, any playbook I looked at, any sales process. It was just understanding, even if you're in a position of authority, which often we as sales reps are not, but if you're a CFO and you're a position of authority, you can technically use the command and control. You must do this, but you know this, you live it. It doesn't mean that people are going to buy into it. If they're not bought into it, then you're going to hit those change speed bumps. So I think deeply understanding how you can find empathy and why someone might stick with what they're doing today, understanding the barrier of status quo, like those are the things in my mind. You could skip all the sales books and learn psychology, and that will take us farther.
That was like a huge aha moment for me right there, because I'm thinking about all the times I've been pitched on something. It's just slide after slide, Jen, of like something great or a feature it does. The old adage is no CFO ever got fired for buying IBM. You go and buy IBM because you don't want to lose your job. But really what you're selling somebody on is the confidence that if I make this decision, it's not going to backfire on me. And that's not addressed nearly as much as the benefits or why this thing kicks ass.
It's also not something we as salespeople typically get to see. Like when I'm working with teams, I'll ask the question, how many of you have been in an executive role? And like nobody raises their hand. So nobody's been in the shoes that you've been in, which is like, if I buy this thing and I make this change and something goes wrong, it's my neck on the line, right? If I keep trucking along with good is good enough, what we've always been doing, it's the devil I know how to work around it. And so I just think like once I started understanding the buyer side of the equation, how much is at risk for them to change versus stay the same? To your point, that really made me look at my slides, my conversations, and be like, you're talking about all the wrong stuff. You're not giving them a reason to change. You're just saying, if you want to change, here it is.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Here's a growth tax nobody talks about. Every new monetization model you ship creates a nightmare for your finance team. Add usage-based pricing? Now you're tracking consumption against commitments. Launch product bundles? That's multiple performance obligations per contract. Offer mid-cycle upgrades? Woo! Good luck reallocating revenue manually. But that's exactly where RightRev shines. RightRev is the revenue recognition engine built for companies that can't afford to let accounting slow down growth. When your RevRec is automated, your product team can ship new pricing without asking finance for permission. And your sales team can close creative deals without worrying about downstream chaos. To get up on my CFO soapbox for a sec, I love talking about creative pricing models, hybrid pricing, credits, tiered usage. But I've seen too many companies where the sales team is celebrating a huge quarter while finance is still trying to figure out how to recognize half of it. In a world where your pricing model might change 3 times next year, that flexibility is everything. If you want to scale your monetization without breaking your books, visit RightRev.com. That's RightRev.com, where modern monetization meets bulletproof accounting.
Here's a question. When was the last time you really had time to focus on growth and not chasing contract renewals, tracking shadow IT spend, or explaining rising software costs to the board? Yikes. The truth is, traditional spend management is broken. If you're still piecing together data from 5 different systems just to figure out what you're actually spending, while vendors keep on pushing those auto renewals and price hikes, my friend, I got a solution for you. That's where Tropic comes in. Tropic is an intelligent spend management solution that consolidates your spend data and processes into one unified offering, enabling insights and decisive action. It doesn't just show you where the problems are, it helps you solve them. From spotting hidden optimization opportunities like duplicative spend, to automating those painful procurement workflows, to giving you the best market data that turns every vendor negotiation in your favor. Tropic combines smart insights with real human expertise to keep you ahead of the curve. And I can say firsthand because I've used them for over 2 years. Their SaaS platform helps me with price checks. It helps me keep my calendar organized of when renewals are coming up and I can actually visualize it. And let me say, it saves me more than 10 hours a week on vendor management, and we've saved a ton on renewals. I'm walking into the boardroom with a lot more confidence. Isn't it time to turn your spend management into your competitive advantage? Visit tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics. That's tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics.
If you run go-to-market, you already know the problem. Your go-to-market data is everywhere. Ads, CRMs, sales calls, marketing, spreadsheets, but you're still guessing what to do next. HockeyStack is the AI platform for modern go-to-market teams that collects all your customer data and unifies it into a single system of action. Then you deploy AI agents that prospect the right accounts, help reps close and upsell deals, improve forecast accuracy, and automate what's already working across sales and marketing. Instead of running 5-year-old processes manually, your go-to-market team finally has agents that understand your ICP, your funnel, and your buying motion, and they execute on it. That's why teams like RingCentral, Outreach, ActiveCampaign, and even Fortune 100 companies rely on HockeyStack to cut through the noise, eliminate wasted spend, and make better go-to-market decisions faster. That's HockeyStack, the AI platform that helps go-to-market teams make space to think and win.
I think one of the biggest aha moments for me about sales, I used to think of sales reps as like, they would constantly tell you the reasons why something else was better. It's like, and focus on, oh, the buyer loves these things that we're doing. And, if they have any issues, our job is to tell them why they're wrong, or here's the things that are better about us. But then I realized actually the best sales reps are some of the most paranoid people ever. They know if you don't choose us, why would you not choose us? Are you talking to other people? If so, what are the biggest concerns? Like, would you sign this now if I could get you this discount? All right, if not, why wouldn't you? What are the things that you have to do internally? Can you commit to doing those things in this timeline? Like, sales reps are so paranoid about all the ways that a deal could actually not close. I didn't give them credit for all of that, almost like game theory around all of the potential outcomes.
People who are not afraid to hear bad news. Like, I think what's wild to me is like, I don't know, a great win rate, if you just take the average, is what, like 30% range? That's great. Which means you're going to lose 7 out of 10 deals, which means if you just think that every deal you're going to win, that's a great way to have a bloated forecast and then just get beat up by your manager all the time. If you assume the opposite, to your point, and you say, what are all the points of frictions or the reason I could anticipate that someone might not do this? And then you say that stuff out loud. One, you get faster to the outcome. It doesn't often change the outcome, but you get there faster. But 2, I feel like you just gain so much more respect because you're just like having a conversation instead of just trying to force someone or convince someone or pitch someone. Like, I just had a call today with a team and they only had 4 people on the team. And I was like, listen, yes, I could train your team, but I don't know that the cost model I have makes any sense. Like, can I give you a couple different ideas that I think might be a better fit? And then when we came back to the end, it was like they were fighting for the workshop. So it wasn't me pushing them. It was just being honest about, like, if I'm in your shoes, I'm not going to probably make choice number 1. We ended up getting there, but it was only because we were able to have an honest conversation instead of me trying to convince them that I was the right solution for them.
Wait, I have a question there. Is part of that the art of the anti-sell?
Reverse selling, like get the prospects to talk about why they need it. Totally. Again, psychology. It's not a hack. It's just like understanding how people's brains work.
If you get the buyer to tell you the issues they have or the concerns they have, that actually means they're revealing a lot more information about their buying behavior and they're acting more like a coach with you in the deal. You don't get that intel if they're not serious. You kind of want to have happy ears of like, oh, they love us, they want to go with us. But if you're not ever hearing anything bad,
you're definitely getting ghosted. We used to say that the most expensive thing is to send a sales rep down a dark alley. It is. Like, salespeople get paid a lot of money and it's your productive capacity. And if they're only hearing yeses on something and there's nothing negative about it, like, you're probably going down a dark alley where you're going to get ghosted at the end of the day.
I was not someone who just like figured out sales and it was easy. I struggled a lot because it felt very unnatural to me. And I remember as a sales rep, when I would hear like, oh, we love it. I'm like, put this in the forecast. And then I would be like, great, like, let's get a next step scheduled. And they'd be like, sure, yeah, let's do it. Let me socialize it and I'll get back to you. And I'm like, they're walking down the hallways. No, they weren't. They just knew they couldn't be honest with me because if they were honest with me and said, there's not enough here for me to go and get 1,000 people on this bus and make a business case and fight for budget. So they were like, yeah, I'll socialize it, went away. It's because I didn't actually give them an out. I didn't say things like, why not wait 6 months to look at this problem? Like, why not just sit on it and hear how they play it back to me? And so much of like what I love about sales, I was a seller for 18 years. Most people will be like, why didn't you have a manager or a leader? Like, do you have goals and aspirations? I did. But there was a lot that I learned from sales every year. And there was always something I was saying or doing that was creating a negative outcome. So there was always something to fix about me. And that's what kept me, I think, so in it for so long.
Can you say more about giving them an out? Because I think it applies to other aspects of business, even just managing people on your team.
So when I'm trying to give someone an out, perfect example is when I get to price. Like, so if I come in and I run a workshop for a team, a 4-hour workshop, it's $20,000. So when I get to price, I know that more often than not, that will be a higher price than they are expecting from me. And so when I tee up the price, the way I tee it up is if they don't ask, first, that's a weird sign. I'm going to say, listen, before we get off the call, I think it's important we do discuss price. I'm going to give you my price. It's very simple how I price it. And if you hear the price and you have vomit coming up in your mouth and you're like, that is not even a realistic opportunity for us to even consider it, just tell me. We're both adults here. I'm okay hearing it. As a result, I end up getting honest answers. Like, I'm not chasing a deal that's too shy to say, oh, let me look into it. Let me look at budget, which is time I don't get back. I will get people saying, you're right, that's completely out of the ballpark. Okay, great. Well, I'm not going to change my price. That's just not a fit. And I'm okay knowing that. I used to be so scared of saying things like that because I would be like, it's 20,000, but what you're going to get is this and this, and here's why it's valuable. And this other customer over here really loved it. And they're like, God, shut up.
I think that's so true. And I feel like you learn that as like a business owner, because I sell consulting services too now. I mean, I do pricing consulting, and I'm the same. I'm like, I am trying to disqualify deals on that call. I do not want to write a proposal or follow up with someone that's not serious. So I probably seem to some people like, wow, Kyle really doesn't want to do this project. That's like, no, I just really don't want to do extra work if you're not serious.
That comes from knowing you're not going to win every conversation. And I think that in and of itself was a belief system I had to shift out of. Like, every deal is not winnable. And it's just knowing early who those ones are and not wasting your time there. And I only say that because I wasted plenty of time working deals that were not winnable.
What are maybe the top 3 tells where you're like, I am going to win this deal? Like, this is a signal that, we got this in the bag.
So number 1 by far is they have data on the problem. So they come to that conversation not talking about like, our prospecting emails are really bad. They'll come to the conversation and say, our goal this year is this dollar amount in the enterprise segment. And to hit that goal, it requires that we sell this many deals at this average selling price. And to get to that deal number, that means we have to book this many meetings, and here's our current meeting, and here's my thinking around why we have such a gap between our meetings target and like our actual meetings booked. Like, now I'm like, this is a business problem. This is not like, I read some emails the other day, I didn't like them, so let's have some cold email training. That by and large is number 1. Number 2 is that it's like they talk in the language of we, not me. So what I mean by that is they're not like, I want this, I do this. They're referencing other people in the business who the problem impacts. And there's other people that like they're name dropping in there. That tells me this is not a desk problem. This is a boardroom problem. And then number 3 would be there's some sort of compelling event. This is not rocket science, right? This is basic sales. You want something that has an anchor date that if it doesn't get better by, there's like a big fallout. So in sales, it's really easy because we're usually up against, we have this number we need to hit. If I'm selling to another buyer, it might be, we've got this new product commitment we're rolling out. There has to be something that has a sort of end date where that makes it feel more urgent.
They've essentially made the business case internally, and they've decided they're going to move forward on this. And so that kind of takes the status quo off the table. And all you have to do is really position yourself as having the right solution for that essentially business case they've already set up.
It might not be a fully fledged business case, but it's like they've done the work to think through it. You're not just like, man, we have a problem. Let's call a sales rep like right off the bat. There's some thought and diagnosis that went into the problem. And I think the important part is figuring out what that was. So the other misstep I would make is like just take their word for it and say, okay, let's go. Let's figure out an answer. I think one of the best deal redirectors I ever learned is if you ask someone, how did you arrive at that conclusion? Who was involved? What was there a meeting? Was there a moment in time? Now you start to understand where beliefs and assumptions are formed. For example, I didn't have a negotiation training offer to sell, but I had a prospect come in, really big prospect. I was like, we want negotiation training. Well, what am I going to do? Like, we don't have it. Bye. So instead I was said, can you help me understand how you got there? They sold like pumps and valves that control the flow of liquid. They walked me through that there was this like Chinese competitor that was coming in way lower cost, seemingly similar product. And so they thought, if we're losing on cost, we need to train on negotiation. How'd you get to it? Well, a bunch of VPs sat in a room and discussed it, and we agreed on this. That gave me this entry point to kind of reframe or redirect to say, it totally might be the case, but like, is there actually a differentiator between you and this lower cost product? Well, yeah, we have a massive reduction in downtime versus the performance of this other product. Okay, does negotiation feel like the right time to talk about downtime? Well, no. And then I just shut up and let them do the math, right? So it's like, I think even if someone doesn't arrive on the conclusion you want, understanding how they believe or assume it's the right answer gives us that opportunity to reframe that conversation. It doesn't always work, but it can.
That is so challenger sale of you.
It is how I grew up.
Jen, have you gotten better over the years at knowing when to shut up and not say something? Because that's my biggest foot fault is I'll just keep talking.
It's hard. I think it's actually a curse of competency. The more you know, the more you're anticipating the question, being like, I got the answer. Like, let me just finish it. I still catch myself doing it all the time, and I hate that I do it. It's where a beginner's mindset actually helps a lot. I think you're genuinely listening. You're genuinely seeking to understand.
It's a quote that I often come back to in finance. It's we're cursed because we know the numbers.
I talk about it a lot as like letting them hit the enter key on the calculator, right? Like if they hit the enter key and it's their idea, they're going to be so much more interested to socialize it because now they're part of it. If I come in and tell you and talk at you, I think there's some psychology to that, right? It's not my idea. It's my sales rep's ideas. I totally buy into that.
I have a few rapid fire questions for you, Jen, if you're open to playing a little game. In an initial call, what percentage of the time should the sales rep be talking versus the customer?
Ooh, that's a hitter.
30.
30% seller.
Wow. Okay. I got to go back to seller school.
What's the number one best discovery question that you like to ask?
Probably, was there a moment in time that you first remember realizing this was a big enough problem it warranted solving? Because what it does is it gets the customer storytelling. And anytime the customer is storytelling, they're often giving me details that feel like I'm pulling teeth if I were to ask in a discovery question. So I like storytelling activator questions like that.
What's the number one competitor in a deal?
Status freaking quo. And it's bigger the bigger the company is. Like, I remember you said it earlier, nobody gets fired for buying IBM. I've always spent my career in enterprise, and they are very willing to tolerate stuff that's kind of broken but works good enough. So good is good enough is a really tough competitor.
And when do you count a deal as actual like qualified pipeline?
Gosh, if you saw my CRM right now, you'd be like, would you even do that? I count it as when they are the ones, this would be different for different types of sales, but it's very rare for my sale that one person buys it. Usually like the CRO has to bless this idea and the sales enablement leader has to be on board and VPs of sales have to like be okay with me taking their team off the line and teaching them how to sell differently. And so when they start assembling that, Avengers group and give me FaceTime, that to me is like, I got something here.
My final one for you is how much pipeline do you need to hit a revenue target?
I'm always on the air of like, you can't have too much quality pipeline, but I would say 5x right now. What do you think? You study this closer than I do.
I do probably agree, 5x. It used to be called 3x, but then someone wrote a piece, 5x is the new 3x, and I do think that's probably true. Unless you're maybe an AI company. I don't know. CJ, you're the CFO.
Well, I was doing the inverse math earlier because I would always build models where in SMB, maybe it was 2x, 2.5x, and mid-market, maybe it was 3x, 3.5x. Enterprise, like it goes up, maybe it's 4x. But I think that the inverse of that is a cool way to look at it. Maybe it's depressing, but maybe it's honest. Jen had said you only win 30% of your deals. If you say you only win 33% of your deals, it's the exact same thing as saying you need 3x pipeline.
Good point. Spoken like a true CFO.
And I know I'm doing the math the same way in my model, but when you talk about it that way, you shouldn't be as discouraged when 2 out of 3 times you get turned down.
Yeah, that's the job you sign up for. If it was easy, we wouldn't get incentive payouts like we do. I don't understand when people think like, well, how do I make this job easy? It's not an easy job. It's a hard job.
So shifting gears a little bit, you are a mastermind with things like outbound messaging. And I have to say, a lot of people, in this current environment are probably like, outbound, does that still work? Does anyone actually read an SDR message anymore? They're inundated by cold emails, cold calls, etc. Like, what messages break through today? Like, what's actually working for folks?
First of all, I want to acknowledge that I am a total dork for research, and you put out some of the best research posts on LinkedIn, Kyle. I don't know, in the last couple of weeks, you've done one around like, if you're less than 10 million ARR versus if you're, a little bit later stage, what are the channels that work? And I just love that because it removes a lot of this, everything is dead, nothing works, just sit around and wait for inbound, like BS that I think is going on everywhere. So I think the key thing and the way that I'm teaching reps to write is we can't show up and talk about our product. And the analogy I give is if you go to the mall, even though people probably don't do that anymore, but if you go to the mall, like you're there for a purpose, buying yourself something, buying your nephew something, and you ever walk by those people that work at the mall kiosks and they're always selling like weird lotions and hair straighteners and
So many lotions.
so many lotions. And they're like, can I apply lotion to you? No, I just met you. You're never there for those people. And if you lock eyes with those people, it's the worst thing ever because now you're the bad guy. And now you got to like wave them off. You got to ignore them. You got to walk faster. And as much as we as human beings all behave the same way, there's always a couple exceptions of people who just love talking to sales reps. But for most of us, we avoid it because we don't want to be convinced. Yet we turn around in prospecting messages. We do the same thing that those mall kiosk people do. Like we're trying to convince you to spend time with me because our product is the best thing ever. To me, especially as email clients get smarter about classifying what a message is about and putting you in a cold email bucket or you need to read this bucket, it's going to be really hard to write a pitch in an email and get away with it because you're just not even going to be seen. It's going to pull you out.
It's going to go to the promotional inbox of Gmail or...
There's executives still to this day that will leave an office for a day and go to an event because there's this innate curiosity around like, what are you doing that I'm not? What do you know that I don't? What should I be doing that I'm not? And they'll leave and they'll spend time on that. But we don't ever think about the fact that we as sales reps have those conversations day in, day out. Like who talks to more people in a CIO role than a person who's selling to CIOs? So we always are in such a hurry to be like, look at our solution. It's so great. And you probably have this one problem. We can help you. Instead of saying, as a company, I see that the business is focused on doing this, which got me thinking that this job to be done in your role might be getting harder. And this other company that we've worked with was up against something similar. Are you open to hearing, some of the things they tried and what worked and what didn't? Which then ultimately lead to, and this challenger, right, lead to a conversation about your solution. But I think the entry point can't be us talking about our stuff anymore if we're truly doing outbound. Like you can do that for heavy inbound or PLG motions, but like if you're truly doing particularly like upmarket enterprise outbound, I just don't think people are going to pay to talk to a sales rep when you can go to ChatGPT and look up that stuff. Like, what else are you giving me that is insightful that helps me do my job more effectively beyond here's what our product does?
So don't pitch the product in the first email, essentially.
You see all these emails. Look, I saw you're hiring SDRs, thought that might mean you're looking to drive growth. Like, no shit. What company is not trying to drive growth? Where are these companies? So it's, even if you're doing like a signal, I think that is getting commoditized really quickly if you're using like really generic messaging like that.
Hi, CJ. I saw that you have a business. Therefore, you like revenue.
I'm pretty sure I've gotten that email in my inbox.
Yeah, for sure. Isn't it so fun when you start a business and then you're like, oh my gosh, I am at the bottom of someone's list.
I got on the starter list here.
I noticed you're at DemandJen. I'm like, yeah, I am DemandJen. That's it.
This outbound, should it come from an AE or a BDR these days?
I think every AE should be feeding themselves. I didn't always think that. I thought, that's somebody else's job. I was very lucky to work for a really tough manager. His name's Kevin. I talk about him all the time. And he was like, you keep coming in here and complaining that marketing's not getting you enough leads and your BDR isn't giving you enough leads and this isn't this and this isn't this. He's like, what are you doing? Because at the end of the year, if you miss your number, no one's going to care at all if you don't have any evidence to show that you fed yourself. And I was like, ooh, that is true. So I think even if you have a BDR, it's an important skill that just keeps you sharp anyway. But that way you're putting less of your destiny in the hands of someone else.
All right, next up, we've got our segment called Business Blunders. What are you seeing out there that you're thinking, why'd that business do that?
Okay, so I had this happen today, and I thought this is the perfect conversation to bring it to. I received a BDR breakup email. So after, I think, 9 emails over the course of less than 2 weeks, someone emailed me to let me know that they're not going to be emailing me again and basically make me feel bad about that. I don't know. Does this actually work?
Tell me, did they say they were going to close your file? Those are my favorite breakup emails.
They did allude to that.
So there is some data that shows that breakup emails work sometimes. But I am very skeptical because often it's like, yeah, you get a reply and the reply is no and unsubscribe me and I don't ever. So does it get a reply? Yes. I think there are different ways to do a breakup email. Like you could say, listen, I've clearly had the wrong hypothesis here, or I realize like this person over here might be a better fit. So I'm going to reach out to them. So I think you can do it. In my adult life, I don't think I've ever sent a breakup email though. I just think like fix the problem. You don't need to narrate the situation.
I very much agree. I hate them. Do you have a business blunder this week, CJ?
I do, but it's going to stretch the limits of what our usual business blunders are. Kyle, you went to school in Providence, Rhode Island, right?
Indeed, I did.
Did you ever go to the mall in Providence?
Providence Place Mall used to be banging. That was like the coolest place.
Dave and Buster's is there. Huge Dave and Buster's.
Yep, Dave and Buster's. We had movie theater. There was everything.
I had a birthday there.
You had a birthday there, Ben? Is that what you said?
Post-college, yes.
Oh, all right.
Wait, is this going to be about the people living in the garage there?
Dude, I lost so much time last night watching this and then going down the rabbit hole. It wasn't in the garage. So these people for 4 years built like a studio apartment hangout area in the Providence Place Mall. And so it's a business blunder because it's in a hub of commercialization. The security just never detected them for 4 years. And it was 8 people that had this secret. And they actually built like a place. It didn't have running water and stuff. They didn't get that far, but it had a TV, it had a door, it had like a table, it had all this stuff so that people could live there. But for 4 years, it went undetected in the Providence Place Mall.
I was literally last night in bed debating between watching that and the Agatha Christie like thing that was like 2 ahead of it in the top 10 shows on Netflix last night. And I picked the other one and it was a bad mistake. I'm going to watch that tonight. Because I was like, how good could this be? How much can you make a story out of someone living in a mall?
It's nuts. And they have footage on like this shitty camera that they had back then where they're like debating next to Sbarro Pizza in the food court, like what type of furniture we should bring in, blah, 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 blah. But it's just a mind-blowing expose on these crazy artists who like got evicted from where they lived in these mill houses that the town built into something else. And they said, you know what? We're going to use that dead space to build an apartment up there.
That is so Providence, though.
It's so Providence.
The security guards probably just thought it was the mafia, and we're like, yep, we're going to leave them alone.
Buddy Cianci makes an appearance in that.
As he should, with it selling his pasta sauce.
Corrupt mayor of Providence.
Oh.
Well, Jen, do you have a business blunder for us?
Well, not as cool as yours. I was just going to say AI SDRs for Outbound. I think that is just a blunder in and of itself of thinking that you can outsmart the game of Outbound. I don't mind them for inbound, but Outbound.
Do you have a specific horror story in mind?
There's a really great example of an AI or SDR outbound message I received that flopped. It was one that was very popular for a while, the company. And the message was something like, I couldn't help but notice your focus on being authoritative and in control, not unlike Jen Shaw from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, who is serving time in whatever prison for mishandling elderly citizens' finances. And I was like, this is by far the best message ever because you've basically just compared me to a con artist.
So that was for an actual product?
It was for an actual product, and the product was their own product. So it was like, if you want to send more messages like this without using headcount to do so, click this link to learn more. And I was like, I can't think of anything I want less. I freaking loved reading it, but what a weird way to advertise your product.
That's even more meta than your original job.
It is. It is.
Next up, we've got our segment, Something I Tried This Week. Could be something goofy, something silly, something useful. Let us know.
So I think all 3 of us are on this sort of like new entrepreneur journey. I'm a solopreneur. I don't know if Jen, if you have employees. No employees either. CJ's got some team members now. But I started off as an LLC, a single member LLC, and I've been moving to an S-Corp this year. I mean, it's going to be great, I think, in terms of tax savings, maybe, but it is terrible currently. There's so much that goes into the change that is like completely obnoxious and feels arbitrary. One of the things, I need to set up payroll, so I'm trying to do that right now. But then it's like whack-a-mole, where then I need payroll accounts with the federal government. I need to file for unemployment insurance, but then the state's like, well, no, you don't actually need an unemployment insurance because you don't have employees, or you need workers' comp. But it's like, but you don't have employees. It's like all of these different steps. Every time I think I'm getting to the end where I'm good, there's like one more thing that I have to do. Please tell me you've done this before, Jen, and it'll ultimately work out fine.
Kyle, I'm so glad you brought this up. So one of the biggest mistakes I've made is having an accountant that has no idea how to work with people like me. Like, it is horrible. It is by far the worst experience I've had. He doesn't listen to this stuff, so I'm not going to hurt his feelings. It's horrible, and I'm shopping around for a new accountant right now because it was so bad. He told me last year he was going to move me to S-Corp. I don't think it happened, and then I just got a letter saying I am an S-Corp now, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing differently. I've done none of the things you just talked about, which makes me even more concerned. charge right now. It is easily the biggest like F up moment in my business since I started. I totally made the wrong call there.
Shout out to Danielle. She is a solopreneur herself who has done this journey. And so a lot of the advice she's able to give me is like, oh, here's what I did, which I'm like, that's actually honestly exactly what I needed. So I can make an intro if you want.
Dude, I'm looking on my computer right now to see if my first payroll actually landed. In my 15 years of running finance teams, this is the first time I've ever missed payroll, and it was to myself. Because it's the beginning of January. I was supposed to get paid today, damn it.
Oh man, I love that. I have to give a shout out to ChatGPT. It's the best thing for walking me through the steps involved, because I'll be like, I have literally no idea how to do this. Literally give me like screenshots of what I'm supposed to do and the links to it. And it's just like, yep, here you go. And it's with something like routine, like filing administrative paperwork, like that's exactly what you need. So I'm hoping it hasn't hallucinated anything yet, but it's been magical.
It's only Monday, so something I've tried this week. But in the sales calls I've had today, I realized I have not been asking about, did you use AI, ChatGPT, anything as part of your research prior to getting to the call today? Like I, as a solo person, know I'm not going to be able to afford a lot of these tools that like will help you understand where you show up. So I realized I probably should start asking. I think it lines up, Kyle, with some of the research you showed, which is most of mine are coming through LinkedIn. So it's like sort of skipping that part. What I need, I think, to do in the future is then ask later down the sales process, now that you've evaluated, did you pull in ChatGPT at any point there too? So not just the entry point. So I'm trying to get better at like, not just the open-ended, how did you hear about us, but like at any point, did you use this in the process?
Yeah, I don't really do anything to stand out, but I do occasionally search to see how ChatGPT portrays me to then try to change some of the things like my about page and my website. Like how can I adjust some of the copy so that it better understands me? Like for the longest time, it thought I still worked at OpenView, which I'm like, no. We're done with that. How do I update you? So I think it's super helpful as like product marketing. Just be like, this is how people see me if they hadn't ever heard of me before.
I just look at whatever you're doing, Kyle, and try to copy it. I was going to text you today, like, what would you do if you were me for my LinkedIn header?
And
that'll be on my to-do list.
He charges me extra for that advice.
I'm trying to get it for you for free, CJ. I'm putting him on the spot.
Yeah, that's where I should have shut up. That was the part of the sale.
I think the biggest thing is you need to start positioning yourself as human AI. That's what Jen thought you were when we joined the call.
It's a compliment.
Thank you.
Honestly, that's exactly the vibe we were looking for. Thanks so much for doing this, Jen.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I learned something that's going to help me. Danielle, I'm coming for you. Thank you.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Additional production by Steve Sarasoli. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe and give it 5 stars. It only takes like 2 seconds and our algorithm overlords love it. Drink water, call your mom, and have a good day.